The direct confrontation between Israel and Iran in 2025 represents a pivotal moment in modern geopolitics, far beyond the immediate Middle Eastern theater. While past decades have seen the two nations engage through proxy wars, cyber attacks, and clandestine operations, 2025 marked a transition into open warfare, capturing the attention of global powers and international media alike. For audiences in the United Kingdom, United States, and Europe, the conflict is highly consequential. It threatens regional stability, disrupts global energy markets, and could have cascading effects on NATO's strategic planning and European security frameworks. Historically, Israel has perceived Iran's nuclear program and regional influence as existential threats, while Iran views Israel as a key agent of Western interference, particularly in alliance with the United States. The outbreak of direct hostilities underscores how prolonged geopolitical rivalries can escalate into full-scale conflict when intelligence operations, military readiness, and strategic miscalculations converge. From an international perspective, the war also highlights the interconnected nature of modern conflict, where regional clashes influence global economics, humanitarian responses, and military doctrine across continents. Energy dependence in Europe, global trade routes, and U.S. defense commitments are all directly affected, making it critical for Western audiences to grasp not only the regional stakes but the broader geopolitical, economic, and security implications of this confrontation. Unlike prior proxy engagements, the 2025 war involves precision-guided airstrikes, missile barrages, and cyber warfare, demonstrating how high-tech modern combat can escalate rapidly, drawing international attention and shaping foreign policy decisions far beyond the Middle East. The roots of the Israel-Iran conflict extend back to the 1979 Islamic Revolution, when Iran transformed its foreign policy to oppose Israel explicitly, refusing to recognize the Jewish state and promoting anti-Israel ideology across the Middle East. Over the decades, Iran expanded its regional influence via proxy groups, notably Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and militias in Syria and Iraq, creating a network of forces capable of striking Israel without direct Iranian involvement. Israel, perceiving these proxies as existential threats, engaged in covert operations, airstrikes, and intelligence campaigns to dismantle these networks and prevent Iran from gaining territorial footholds near Israeli borders. For international audiences, understanding this background is crucial. The conflict is not a spontaneous flare-up but the culmination of decades of strategic competition, ideological hostility, and repeated cycles of retaliation. These years of shadow war allowed both nations to refine military capabilities, intelligence apparatuses, and cyber warfare operations, setting the stage for a potential escalation. The 2025 direct conflict must thus be seen against this historical backdrop, where years of indirect engagement gradually escalated technological sophistication, military readiness, and strategic risk, making a direct confrontation inevitable once thresholds were crossed, such as nuclear development and regional military encirclement. This context also highlights for global audiences how regional conflicts can simmer quietly for decades, only erupting into global attention when direct action occurs. The 2025 outbreak of hostilities resulted from a complex interplay of strategic, technological, and ideological factors. Israel's long-standing fear of a nuclear-capable Iran intensified as Tehran accelerated uranium enrichment programs, potentially crossing thresholds for weapons-grade material. Israel interpreted this as an existential threat, prompting military planning for preemptive strikes. Concurrently, Iran viewed Israel's expanding alliances with Arab nations, including the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain, as strategic encirclement, designed to isolate Iran politically and militarily. Cyber attacks and intelligence operations in early 2025 further destabilized the situation. Iranian hackers targeted Israeli infrastructure, while Israeli covert units reportedly sabotaged Iranian missile production and air defense systems. This high-tech tit-for-tat created a climate of rapid escalation, where each side perceived immediate threats to sovereignty and survival. Moreover, ideological factors reinforced the stakes. Iran's anti-Israel rhetoric and strategic vision of regional dominance collided with Israel's doctrine of uncompromising defense and nuclear deterrence. International observers in the US and Europe recognized that diplomatic channels were failing, as the two nations' perceptions of threat and survival left little room for negotiation. By mid-2025, a combination of nuclear anxiety, regional rivalries, and rapid technological escalation made a direct confrontation nearly unavoidable, illustrating for global audiences how long-standing regional tensions, when combined with modern military capabilities, can rapidly evolve into open warfare. The conflict officially erupted in June 2025, when Israel initiated Operation Rising Lion, targeting Iranian nuclear facilities, missile installations and critical military infrastructure in Natanz, Isfahan, and other strategic locations. The operation deployed hundreds of fighter jets, precision-guided munitions, drones, and intelligence support, highlighting Israel's technological superiority and its capacity for coordinated preemptive strikes. Iran responded immediately with Operation True Promise 3, launching over 150 ballistic missiles and 100 drones targeting Israeli military bases, urban centers and critical civilian infrastructure. Over several days, the two nations engaged in sustained exchanges of missile barrages, airstrikes and electronic warfare, with both sides testing the limits of modern military technology. For international audiences, these rapid developments underscore how quickly modern conflicts can escalate, moving from covert actions to full-scale war in a matter of days. The timing also emphasizes the strategic calculation behind modern warfare, as both nations sought to achieve maximum impact before international intervention or diplomatic pressure could constrain their actions. The timeline of these events demonstrates that in the 21st century, conflicts are no longer gradual or limited in scope. Technology, intelligence, and rapid deployment can accelerate escalation dramatically. The 2025 conflict showcased a new dimension of warfare, where civilian populations and infrastructure became unintended yet unavoidable targets. Iranian missile and drone strikes hit Israeli cities, research centers such as the Weizmann Institute of Science, hospitals, and residential neighborhoods, causing both structural damage and civilian casualties. Similarly, Israeli airstrikes destroyed Iranian nuclear sites, missile depots, and strategic military targets, some located near urban areas. The deployment of drones, cyber operations, and precision-guided munitions illustrated how advanced military technology allows for high-impact strikes but simultaneously increases risk to civilian life. Global audiences in Europe and the US should understand that modern conflicts no longer respect clear boundaries between combatants and civilians, raising ethical and humanitarian concerns. The 2025 Israel-Iran war is a vivid example of how precision technology, when combined with high-stakes strategy, can produce significant human cost, even as both nations attempt to achieve tactical objectives. The strategic objectives of Israel and Iran in 2025 were deeply rooted in existential considerations, regional dominance, and ideological imperatives. Israel entered the conflict with a clear goal: to preemptively neutralize Iran's nuclear capabilities, degrade its missile infrastructure, and curtail its regional influence, thereby ensuring its long-term security. The Israeli military sought not only to destroy tangible threats but also to signal deterrence, demonstrating to Iran and its proxies that any attempt to attack Israeli territory would provoke an overwhelming response. Iran, by contrast, pursued a strategy of demonstration and deterrence, aiming to show that it could retaliate effectively, protect its sovereignty, and maintain influence over allied militias across Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza. For the global audience, this highlights the complexity of modern strategic thinking, where decisions are influenced not just by immediate military advantage but by long-term psychological, political, and symbolic calculations. Both nations were acutely aware that miscalculations could spiral into a wider regional war involving neighboring Gulf states, NATO forces, or even superpowers like the US and Russia. Moreover, both sides leveraged modern military doctrine, integrating cyber operations, drone warfare, precision strikes, and missile defense systems to achieve objectives with minimal own casualty exposure. The conflict, therefore, serves as a case study in high-tech asymmetric warfare, where military superiority, intelligence, and rapid decision-making converge with political imperatives to shape outcomes. The international response to the 2025 Israel-Iran war was complex, reflecting the entwined nature of regional conflicts and global security interests. The United States, Israel's key ally, provided political backing and limited logistical support, including intelligence sharing and selective targeting assistance. This support reinforced Israel's operational capacity while simultaneously signaling to Iran that Western powers were fully engaged in maintaining Israel's security. European nations, particularly the United Kingdom, France, and Germany, pursued intensive diplomatic engagement, coordinating with the United Nations and regional partners to broker ceasefires and mitigate humanitarian crises. NATO closely monitored the conflict, evaluating implications for collective security, particularly given the risk that Iranian missile or drone technology could extend into Europe via proxies or black market transfers. Beyond traditional diplomacy, international financial institutions and energy regulators reacted to the crisis, assessing how disruptions in oil supply and trade could destabilize markets. For global audiences, the war underscores that modern conflicts are rarely regional. They ripple across continents, affecting international alliances, trade flows, and security doctrines. The world watched closely as the Israeli and Iranian militaries tested the limits of modern warfare, while diplomats, analysts, and policymakers sought to prevent a broader conflagration. The economic ramifications of the Israel-Iran conflict were felt far beyond the Middle East. The threat of disruption to the Strait of Hormuz, a vital transit corridor for roughly a fifth of global oil supply, sent oil prices soaring, affecting both Europe and the United States. Markets responded with volatility, insurance premiums for shipping increased, and energy importers scrambled to secure alternative supply lines. Israel itself faced significant expenditure in sustaining high-intensity operations, from advanced missile deployments to repair of civilian infrastructure. Iran's economy, already strained by international sanctions, saw further contraction due to both military damage and the ripple effects on oil exports. Global financial systems felt tremors, with investors concerned about instability in commodity markets and geopolitical risk premiums rising sharply. For European audiences heavily reliant on imported energy, this conflict highlighted the vulnerability of global markets to regional instability. Beyond oil, the war disrupted trade routes, shipping insurance, and investment confidence in Middle Eastern and adjacent regions. Thus, the 2025 conflict serves as a vivid lesson that regional wars in strategic locations have immediate and tangible global economic consequences, influencing everyday lives thousands of miles away. While military and strategic outcomes dominated headlines, the humanitarian consequences of the 2025 conflict were profound. In Israel, Iranian missile strikes caused casualties, injuries, and widespread damage to residential areas, hospitals, and schools. In Iran, Israeli airstrikes on nuclear and military facilities inadvertently affected civilian neighborhoods, resulting in hundreds of deaths and thousands injured, alongside massive displacement. Refugee flows created additional regional strain, with neighboring countries and international agencies scrambling to provide aid. Humanitarian organizations such as the Red Cross, UNHCR, and Médecins Sans Frontières faced enormous challenges delivering medical care, shelter, and supplies amid ongoing hostilities. For audiences in the UK, USA, and Europe, the crisis underscored the human cost of direct warfare, reminding policymakers and citizens alike that strategic victories often come at an immense moral and social price. The conflict highlighted that modern war is rarely confined to combatants alone. Civilians, infrastructure, and essential services become collateral in the struggle, and international coordination becomes essential to mitigate suffering. The Israel-Iran War of 2025 stands as a stark illustration of how regional conflicts can rapidly escalate into crises with global repercussions. Beyond military strategy and geopolitical maneuvering, the war demonstrates the interconnectedness of energy security, global economics, humanitarian responsibility, and diplomatic engagement. For audiences across Europe, the UK, and the United States, the conflict carries profound lessons. The necessity of early intervention through diplomacy, the importance of monitoring emerging threats such as nuclear proliferation and advanced missile technology, and the moral imperative to protect civilian populations. The war also underscores that in the modern era, no conflict is isolated. The consequences ripple across continents, affecting economies, alliances, and international norms. Ultimately, the 2025 conflict teaches a critical moral, that peace and stability require proactive engagement, informed global cooperation, and recognition of our shared vulnerability in an interconnected world. Nations, policymakers, and citizens alike must understand that failure to address underlying tensions early can result in devastating loss, not just regionally but globally, reinforcing the principle that diplomacy, vigilance, and humanitarian responsibility are as crucial as military might in preserving peace.